I would certainly label myself as a skeptic when it comes to AAA games, and things have been no different following the announcement of Starfield. Yes, I know I just made a video about how this is an indie game channel, but for some reason, this game is calling to me. Of course, we've known about this one for a long time now, and as a big fan of Skyrim, especially, and futuristic sci-fi stuff, I should have been super hyped from the get-go, right? But for some reason, I kept forgetting about Starfield, or maybe I've just been pushing it out of my mind because I don't want to end up being disappointed. It's a very odd phenomenon. I don't know if it's just my brain trying to protect me from getting burned again, or if there's actually something special here, or at least something that Todd is trying to make seem special. Either way, I finally decided to look more into the game after hearing about the persuasion minigame and the dialogue in general, and that's because I'm a sucker for choice and consequence. Don't get me wrong though, I still think Starfield has some major red flags, but this video isn't going to focus solely on those. Rather, I'm going to try to spin them into something a bit more positive. I conducted a little poll about Starfield just to see which way you guys are all leaning, and the results were pretty much as expected. Obviously, this isn't a Starfield channel based on your answers, but the results do just about sum up all of my own complex feelings. Approximately 25% meh and 47% skeptically excited. A very small part of me is very excited, and the rest is not exactly sure what's going on. Hey, at least they're finally making something to replace the abundance of Skyrim editions.
You look at Skyrim, we're sitting here 10 years later.
Aside from maybe Red Dead Redemption 2, for those who don't mind a slower pace, I think Bethesda has made some of the best open world games a person could play. I know the phrase open world leaves a very bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, my own included, but Bethesda has at least taken a slightly better approach to it than most other AAA studios. The biggest thing that stands out to me in regards to their titles are the exploration and world building. So imagine what they could do with an entirely new IP set in space. Bethesda games let you craft your own experience. When I played Skyrim, I barely touched the main storyline, and that's mostly because I just kind of forgot about it. I was too caught up in unlocking new locations, discovering cities, talking to every NPC I could find, and trying to prove myself to the Thieves Guild. In this way, I was kind of able to push past and ignore some of the problems that people have with Bethesda's games and play the way I wanted to. Same thing happened with Fallout 4. The best memories I have from the game are just me goofing off and wandering around. I'll never forget entering Diamond City for the first time and thinking it was just about the coolest idea ever. Now imagine reliving this feeling, but on totally different planets with an entirely new backstory, lore, and ecosystem. I got a very small glimpse of this feeling when I heard about the city of Neon in Starfield. It started off as a fishing platform located on an aquatic planet, but when scientists discovered a fish with psychotropic properties, they turned it into a drug called Aurora. Now people travel from all over the galaxy to experience the city of Neon and Aurora, among other pleasures. And that's just one city on one planet. That leads me into one of the main reasons I'm excited for the game: infinite possibilities, also known as the giant double-edged sword of the open world. Having 1,000 explorable planets is just too much. But what if you crafted your own experience, Bethesda style, and just spent your time on the ones that felt the most like home? Having too much is usually better than not having enough, as long as there's something of value somewhere in the too muchness. Now let's talk about the resource mining planet scanning thing. Yes, it is a bit questionable that this is the first thing they decided to show in the official gameplay reveal of their massive Choices Matter role-playing game set in the expanse of the cosmos. But it probably doesn't take up that much of the game, unless you want it to. If you want to be a biologist, geologist type of explorer and learn about the flora and fauna and chemical makeup of all 1,000 planets, then that's awesome. And it does seem like you can really dive into that since you can scan a planet to learn about its atmosphere, magnetosphere, and the force of gravity. If that's not your thing, then you can just head on over to Neon and party your heart out. Again, this is me trying to put an optimistic spin on things, because we could all use a little more of that in our lives. But I don't think scanning is going to be embedded into the core of Starfield and ruin your entire experience with the game. But I'm also not going to blindly state that this game is going to be the best RPG ever and can't possibly fail. The combat, for one, does not thrill me. Combat's pretty much never my favorite thing in any game, so don't take my word for it. Let's go back to the Constellation Questions video I talked about in the intro, and the little things that have reignited my interest in Starfield. These types of games really like to talk about how deep they are and how your choices matter, and I always take this kind of stuff as an empty promise, and I'll believe it when I see it kind of situation. What I am seeing, though, is a pretty cool looking speech persuasion system and a unique way to tackle character traits. Starfield seems to be taking the play how you want thing to a whole new level, treating the negative traits that come with our character's backstory as something that you can solve rather than something that you're just stuck with. Being able to remove some of these traits through quests and possibly other methods makes it seem like the next big immersive RPG that you'll be telling your grandkids about. Yes, we all love to make fun of Todd Howard, and he was pretty awkward, as usual, in this latest video, but he does a damn good job of talking up Bethesda's games. One last thing I want to touch on when it comes to Starfield is the art, the music, and the vibes.
I always say that the music is the fourth dimension. It is the emotional dimension.
The way Starfield's composer talks about the game's music is exactly how I hope my experience with the game feels. Hopefully, it can make the otherwise daunting and boring act of piloting a ship through the emptiness of space into something a bit more scenic and cinematic. And although this doesn't tell us anything about the game, I really love the style of these social icons and these posters made in collaboration with a few different artists. This is also where my thumbnail art comes from. What I'm saying is their marketing department is doing a good job, okay? They've got the music, they've got the art, and they've got the spokespeople to hype it all up. I very much hope that Starfield can at least capture the vibe they've laid down over the past few years. I can deal with a mediocre story, clunky combat, and a little bit of jankiness, so long as the moment-to-moment travel and exploration is up to snuff. There's a reason space is called the final frontier. There's just nothing quite like it here on Earth.
In some ways, since every element in each of us is from the stars, we want to return.